All right, recording going. So. My brain just went a million directions. So we're talking about Min's dump truck ass and how the world is supported by it. And then in chats, the word tickle heart comes up. And this reminds me that we got feedback. We got feedback in an email. We got feedback in a person who actually came to Discord just to make feedback. And that same person sent us an email because they really wanted us to know this. But as I'm recording this, 2 months. Remember the line 2 months? And we were all confused about it. This person's like, it's really obvious what the 2 months is. She had just threatened to kick Elaine's tickle heart around the palace until she can't sit for a month. 2 months! She's escalating the threat. It's very simple. It's very obvious to the casual observer. Thank you to the person whose name I'm already spaced, who sent us that message with so much fervor because we were so annoyed about that. It was that obvious. If it was a snake, it would have bitten us. Thank you.
Yeah. Man, look at those trees. Those trees look so amazing. Are we in a forest? What is this forest we're in? I don't know what now. No, these are just individual trees we're looking at.
Yeah, I think it was Anti Angervio. Anati Angervio. I don't know what your name is. Whoever you are, you know who you are, and I appreciate you.
We did get an email from Shannon who said the 2 months was because Bridget was going to kick her ass around the palace for a month. Then later, when she receives a particularly strong emotion from Elaine, she ups the ante to 2 months.
Yes, that email, that person. Shannon, you said?
Yes. So thank you, Shannon.
Okay. Yeah, Shannon. Excellent catch. Thank you.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Well, we are now an hour into this. Do we want to actually talk about the chapter we came here to talk about?
I do believe we are in need of a Bellfounder.
Because God knows I could use a cannon right now.
Yeah. So, chapter 15 has the symbol of dice because he's back.
Matt's back, guys.
Our boy's back.
Matt's back in the house. And the house is back on Tim.
The house is off of him.
Off of Matt, yes, yeah. Right. He's back in the house, not under the house. Yes. So, and there is a decent amount of recap in this chapter, where he's sort of talking about like what I've been up to and what recap's not necessarily the right word because it's like time has passed. So it's more of a flashback. Yeah,
we're getting him resynchronized with the plot. Given that he's been missing for a book and a half, he needs his own little exposition on ramp to get going.
But again, as we figured out, that was about 6 weeks, which is not that long of a period of time, especially when you've broken some bones, right? He's just basically been in bed for 6 weeks healing. It's just a lot has happened elsewhere in the meantime.
Yeah. Which Legend is pointing out in chat, 6 weeks in Randland time. That's 6 weeks. 6 weeks is in Randland time is 60 days.
Yes.
Not
because 10-day weeks.
Yeah, 10-day weeks.
Did we get the number 60 days somewhere, or did I? Is that just the 6 weeks I was talking about?
No, I think it's just the 6 weeks you're talking about because it doesn't say 60 days. But if it's 6 weeks and we know that they're 10-day weeks, so that means it's 60 days. So it's been 2 months by our reckoning of how long it takes for wounds to heal. But yeah, he still is like, I can't leave the city. I'm not strong enough. My leg is still busted up. Like he's out and walking, but that's a pretty new thing. But yeah, we'll get there as we get there. First, you should read us in.
He's basically in physical therapy.
Yes.
In need of a Bellfounder. The box-like wagon reminded Matt of tinker wagons he had seen. A little house on wheels, though this one, filled with cabinets and workbenches built into the walls, was not made for a dwelling. Wrinkling his nose at the odd, acrid smells that filled the interior, he shifted uncomfortably on his three-legged stool, the only place for anyone to sit. His broken leg and ribs were near enough healed, and the cuts that he had suffered when that whole bloody building fell on his head, but the injuries still pained him now and then. Besides, he was hoping for sympathy. Women love to show sympathy if you played it outright. He made himself stop twisting his long signet ring on his finger. Let a woman know you are nervous, and she put her own construction on it, and sympathy went right out the window. Lady Aludra, he said, assuming his most winning smile, by this time you must know the Shan won't look twice at fireworks. Those Damane do something called skylights that make your best fireworks look like a few sparks flying up the chimney. So I hear. No offense meant.
Yeah, so Matt is with Aludra, which is fun. Aludra is awesome. Aludra's one of my favorite background characters.
Aludra at the circus, right?
Yes, this is Aludra having met Valen Luca and made a new life for herself post being excommunicated from the Guild of Illuminators.
Which, I mean, I guess in the long run kind of saved her life because the Guild of Communicators, died.
Yeah, for sure. The part where they kicked her out saved her, for sure. And Aludra is not impressed by the concept of skylights. She's pretending that this newfangled technology means nothing, and good old-fashioned fireworks will be the rage forever.
Listen, I just want to see the example of something that blows fireworks out of the sky, that literally makes fireworks look passé, right? Like, fireworks are some of the most amazing, cool things we ever produce. And skylights make them look boring? Seriously?
I mean, combine fireworks with the dexterity of a laser light show. I think it's the dexterity of weaves and the fact that they don't have to obey physics in the same way as burning powder does is the only possible way you can make that make sense, because fireworks are incredible. Also, these probably aren't loud. Skylights probably don't give, dogs and people with PTSD nightmares.
But that's some of the power of fireworks, right? Is the boom shaking explosions that you experience when those things pop off. And that weird, time delay between when they explode and when you actually hear them.
That's true. The Shan would include noise in their skylights. I wouldn't if I was designing it. But I can see how you're right. The Shan probably do include that feature.
Although I'm not entirely sure about that, because the skylight, they do say skylights, not like sky explosions or sky noise or anything like that. Like, maybe it is just a great visual display. And maybe they do think of the explosions as a bad thing. And that's one of the reasons why they don't like them as much.
I don't know. That's a really good question. Okay, Rafe, figure it out.
Yeah, let's
show us.
This is one of those things where, this in the show, the skylights would be really cool to see, because that would be a visual thing that, we all have headcanon for what we think they look like, but there's no real description of them, just a name and a explanation that they're better than fireworks.
Yeah.
So he's got broken ribs, a broken leg. Those have both healed, but the leg still bothers him sometimes. They do point out the signet ring on his finger to let you know that he's still wearing that, which will be important when he runs into Tuon later. Because again, we just saw Tuon, right? That was sort of like, yes, that was Tuon, and now here's Matt. In that classic, yes, these two will encounter each other. They're going to be dealing with each other.
Yep.
Might as well get used to it.
Right. This is fated. We get a call back to the fact that he saved her from Tammuz. That's kind of fun. Just in case you forgot that's how they met before. Getting that reminder just straight on the page. Moving on to the Guild of Illuminators being basically exterminated. Matt has to break this news to Aludra, and she takes it pretty well. It hits and it hurts, but she stiff upper lips her way through it and then pretty much deflects and compartmentalizes. But Matt has to tell her that basically the Shan misinterpreted an accident and killed everybody else who was associated with fireworks. So now Aludra is literally the only one.
I like Matt's attempt to hide it when he's like, oh, I wager you'll never see another Illuminator. And she's like, what do you know? And he's like, oh, how did she figure that out? I hit every clue. And it's like, you literally told her you'd bet she'd never see another Illuminator, and you never lose a bet. So, you must know something.
Yeah.
And she calls him out on that.
Absolutely.
So, all the Illuminators that exist have been made Daco Vale, which is essentially slaves. It feels like a death sentence. I mean, they're not technically dead, but they'll never do anything of any use ever again.
They're not Illuminators anymore. They've lost their knowledge. They've lost their powder. Well, they haven't lost their knowledge, but as soon as they're all dead, the knowledge is gone, right? Their books have probably been burned. Their powders have been destroyed. Their workshops have been destroyed. Their equipment's been destroyed. They've been split up and subjected to, horrific treatment. Like, Illuminators as an institution are gone.
And Aludra has that, well, if I'm the last one left, then I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be the Illuminators Guild.
Yeah. She's like, well, now I make the rules. And I'm going to do what I want. And the first thing I'm going to do is start teasing information about the fact that cannons are a dream that I've had for a while. Well, first, we learned that Matt's been trying to get fireworks from her. And she's like, what do you want? You want to put him in a catapult like a dumbass? And Matt's like, I'm not a dumbass. It's a good idea. It's really funny. One of the few times that Matt is like tactically outmaneuvered, he's always the smart, brilliant one. And Aludra's just like, I am so many steps ahead of you, bro.
Yeah.
So many.
And he's like, well, I wouldn't use I've seen those lofting tubes. All you got to do is put them on their side and they'd like loft the fireworks sideways and you could totally hit people far away. And she's like, yeah, you could do that. Or I've got a better idea. Mm-hmm. Which is cannons,
Yeah, which is, he's almost there, Like tipping it on its side and launching it sideways is real close to a cannon. It's so close. And that's why Aludra's looking at him with like surprise. And yet I think we're all thinking like that's a no duh thing because obviously we live in a world with cannons and it's Matt. So of course he's going to leap straight to the obvious conclusion.
Well, and it's interesting to me when you think about how these lofting tubes work. There's like this amount of powder that launches them and then there's the amount of power in the firework. And she somehow concluded that the powder that launches it is the more important part than the actual powder in the firework itself. And she's figured out that if you launch something that's heavier, like an iron ball, that's going to do more damage than launching something that explodes, like a firework.
Yep. Somehow she's the kind of mechanical genius that has figured out that mass is far more important than anything else when it comes to ballistics.
Right. Well, I mean, an exploding warhead is definitely something that we've, used.
Sure.
But yeah, just the cannonball itself. I think it might also have to do with how much black powder and explosives she can make, right? So if you can make X amount of powder, how do you make that the most effective? Well, you just put it into the launching tubes and then you launch something else. Right? So that might also be like, oh, this is a limited resource. How can I optimize its use?
For sure. Plus, there's the safety aspect, which is why she needs a Bellfounder, right? You put enough charge into the tube and it's going to shatter out the back rather than project your projectile where it needs to go. So you need a stronger tube than a firework would ever need if you want to put that kind of charge into it.
Right. And then you've got to worry, if you have an explosive charge on the front, you got to worry about that blowing up before you want it to. Whereas if you just put a cannonball on the end, that'll just fire outwards.
Right, yeah. Once it's in the air and moving, it has all the oomph it needs just because physics.
And I'm sure she's had experience with like longer tubes, make the things go higher, which means they go farther, right? She's had that basic practical knowledge.
Yeah.
And then so she's basically like, well, I talk too much. I let that slip. Like, you figure that. You got a little too close to the truth of what I want. So she says, tell me what use I have for a Bellfounder, and I will tell you all my secrets. Basically, if you're smart enough to figure that out, then it's worth telling you.
Yeah. She's like, if you can figure that out without me giving you any clues, hardly at all, what if I give you an actual clue? How much more can you do with that? Let's see. This will be a fun game. She's taking a bet with herself as she delivers that line about how long it's going to take.
Well, and I have to wonder if she's not thinking about backing, right? She's seen him win at gambling. She's seen that he's connected to the queen, right? Like, I'm sure she's got to think about, like, who's going to make all of these cannons.
Yeah. I mean, given the ingredients list that she gives to him in the end, yeah, I would think that at this point she's already anticipating needing the wealth of either a private army with a weirdly lucky guy who just earns all the money or a nation. She's probably already thought about that at this point.
So I wonder how much of this, like, flirtation,
is looking for a sugar daddy.
Some of it's real. Cannons. Yeah, but it's a little bit of a cannon daddy.
I mean, it's not like he's bad to look at, canonically speaking. You know, it's like, oh, if I just kiss up to this guy and make him feel special and like maybe have a good time, then maybe I'll get more money. Like, that's about the least objectionable iteration of sex work that a person could ask for.
Also, he's safe, right? Because he's with Tylin.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely. He is currently being objectified and subjugated. He's hardly a threat to her.
Right. So here's the line. While he was, legs in splints and his ribs wrapped in bandages, Tylin had hidden all of his clothes and replaced them with her own that she's made for him. And again, we get more into the sort of the way that Tylin has enforced that Matt stay and that he not run away.
Her possessiveness has reached its apex.
But at the same time, he's buying into it a little bit, right? He's staying at her place. He's taking her clothes. He could take his money and go pretty much at any time once he feels better. Now, there's a bunch of reasons, I'm going to put those in quotes, why he's staying, and he's trying to eliminate those one by one. But there's an interesting perspective on Matt as somebody who has run away from responsibility and been like, oh, as long as I've got seed money, I'm fine. I can always rebuild my fortune. And then this guy who finds every excuse not to go.
I think of Tylin as a serial abuser and as Matt as a victim, and just like, I'm not going to victim blame someone who is stuck in an abusive, fucked up situation. I don't have like the depth to take it more. I don't have the energy. I can't make myself get on board with he could leave at any time. I don't see it. I really don't. But I suppose that's technically true of everyone. You have feet, you can technically leave anytime.
It goes with this line later when he thinks Tylin hadn't changed him, and it's like, oh, but you are acting very, very differently than you did before.
Yeah, he's lying to himself. He's like, and the way she's treating him doesn't like change in light of like, could he leave or not? Like, just the sheer cringe around all of this is just, it overshadows everything.
And I'm not trying to victim blame him, right? All I'm saying is that he's changed his behavior from somebody who would get up and leave at any point in time to now someone who won't. And that actually is because he's the victim of the abuse.
I think maybe TC's Traveler in chat saying it well. The whole point of coercive control is that you aren't chained visibly. You choose to stay because your mind is trapped. And that, I feel like that's what this whole sequence really gives us, is showing us like the level of entrapment that Matt has descended to since we last checked in with him. And he's like, oh, Tylin hasn't changed me. Well, he's absolutely changed. And it's like, oh boy.
Been changed. He's completely different. Yeah.
You've changed a lot. And like, I mean, yeah, those are choices, but like, I mean, are they choices?
Right. Like things like he would never leave Pips because Tylin has Pips. He can't leave because his clothes are hidden, right? Like, these are all barriers to being left.
Right.
But
yeah.
But the things that are his have been taken away from him, which makes it harder to leave.
Right. It's like if a mom doesn't want to leave her kids and her credit card and her family heirlooms. Like, yes, you can leave, but your abusive husband will keep your child and all of your possessions. So yeah, it's a choice to stay. Right? Like, that's where he's at, basically.
Right. Whereas, and I think specifically, like, I'm thinking of, like, TV Matt, who, like, he's got nothing but a threadbare coat, and he just decides not to go. He decides not to go in the gateway. And that's because he has nothing. He has nothing that's going to pull him along. He has no obligations. He has no possessions. Whereas this Matt has things, and things he cares about, and things he wants to take care of.
Well, I mean, he's still in his being wiped blank by the dagger state in the show, right? He still hasn't. When he walks out of the dagger, he is tabula rasa Matt. He has nothing. And then he has his lucky night and goes on from there. So show Matt has yet to have his lucky night.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe that's the better way of thinking about it is, yeah, Matt on his lucky night when he's literally like, well, I've got 2 coppers. I've got, 2 silvers in my pocket and I'm leaving this city. I've stolen some food and, hell or high water, I'm going to jump on the first ship out of here. The first ship. And he literally means it, that's the Matt is, I'm going to jump on the first ship out of here with 2 silvers in my pocket. And that's it. And I will make it. And that's so far from this Matt who's like, I got to take care of Pips, and then I got to heal, and I got to see if Vanon's going to do this thing, and I got to check in with Aludra, and I got to look out for Olver. Yeah. No, and you're just like, wow, okay, Matt, the family man.
Yeah.
Is a very different person than the tabula rasa Matt that we used to have. And at the same time, he hasn't changed at all. He swears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, as you said, before, like this is the Matt we often think of, right? This is the part of Matt's arc that is most archetypal of his overall thing, with Olver running around underfoot, imitating him, but only his other uncles are influencing him. And that right. This is Matt, like here he is. And it's the guy that denies responsibility while having it, because he literally has an entourage of a family.
But at the same time, he can't sit in a saddle for more than a mile. He has no real way of traveling other than being hauled.
Yeah, like a wagon.
I mean, I guess a ship. I guess you could get him on a boat, right? I think he would actually do pretty well via sea, and they are in a port. Yeah. But I think it's hard. I think it's just the Shanshan are the only ones really with ships going in and out, so he doesn't want to get on one of those.
Yeah, and he, again, needs too much infrastructure. Like, Tylin can keep him from getting on a boat. Tylin can keep a boat from sailing with him on it. Like, she has that kind of state power to just keep him from getting anywhere. The authorities will literally turn him back over to her if he runs away.
So his plan to leave and escape involves this circus, right? He's going out there to talk to Aludra, but he's decided that he can travel with Vanen when Vanen leaves. And that's a good way where he can travel slowly. He can ride in a wagon. It's not under Tylin's direct control. It's over land. So it's, getting away from the Shanshan. And they have horses because of taking care of,
Sarandon and her Shreddit.
The elephant. So basically he delivered the elephants back to the Shanshan and was given a writ of forgiveness or protection.
Yeah, he gets a bunch of rewards, basically, for protecting a Shanshan and her animals who were left behind in Falma. And, remember, Elaine tried to bring Sarandon with them away. If she had managed to convince Sarandon to abandon the elephants, the Shreddit, and come with them to Andor, then Valen Luca wouldn't have had horse lines to be an option for Matt to work with. None of this arc would be possible if Elaine had managed to convince Sarandon to leave. But Sarandon's loyalty to the Shreddit meant that she ultimately was delivered back to the Shanshan, and thus Luca could get a reward for just being a good, decent Samaritan, basically.
That's a funny scene when, Elaine tries to force Sarandon to come back, and Sarandon puts her on her ass. She's like, yeah, I know Kung Fu. Don't mess with me.
Very much so.
Right,
very much so.
Yeah. I mean, she deals with elephants. She's got to be strong with the food and the hauling.
Oh, yeah. Her arms, she just automatically, she's super strong. I was saying earlier, I really love Aludra. I don't love how much Aludra just leans into objectifying Matt and just making him feel really gross about his whole situation. Not my favorite Aludra moment. I love her for the most part, but also she's 10 years older than Matt, and he looks like a Popinjay. So I guess it's makes sense from her perspective to be like, he wants to dress like that. I can do what I want, but it's not my favorite Aludra moment.
And I think one of the other things that from the outside, it's often difficult to identify an abusive relationship.
She's not privy to that kind of information at all.
Yeah, exactly. She's nowhere near them. So she just sees him as, wow, we got, and that's one of the things that makes this so weird is that there is such a power imbalance between the two of them. And everyone's like, well, of course you want to get with her. And he's like, well, no.
Right.
But don't you want to be with a queen? Right. She can give you whatever you want. She give you money, clothes, right? Go be a queen's Popinjay and you'll be spoiled. Who doesn't want that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It totally makes sense. And yeah. And then there's this passage that as Pacific Northwesters, I feel like we can really relate to. Altara had no true winter, but what it did have was enough to be going on with. Rather than snow, there were icy rains and thunderstorms racing in off the sea, and in between it was damp enough to make the cold seem harder. The ground had a sodden feel under your boots even when it was dry. That is the Pacific Northwest in a nutshell, folks.
It really is. It really is.
It does not snow here very often, and when it does, it is wet and it is heavy and it promptly turns to mud. Like, if the snow lasts for more than 2 or 3 days, like, we are freaking out and making national news. We don't do snow, but it is just wet, pervasively wet everywhere, constantly for like 3 solid months. Like, it's never dry. Even things that should be dry aren't dry because the air itself is just drifting wetness.
It's living next to an ocean in a temperate climate, right? You can see it in England. You can see it in the Pacific Northwest. You can see it in a bunch of other places that would normally get quite cold in the winter, but because the sea is this giant heat sink providing warm, wet air, you end up with these like cold, rainy, drizzly days instead.
Yeah, and just perpetual fog, and it's 50 degrees and raining for just 3 months.
But it's the mix of relatively, I'm putting relatively warm air,
yeah,
right, from the ocean hitting the cold air from the continent.
Yes, we here actually have quite cold ocean air. Our ocean is it's a place where there's upwelling, which means that cold water from underneath is actually being drawn up by the way that the wind pushes the surface air off. Whereas England is much farther north than us and yet has a very similar climate to us. Why? Because it gets the surface water that was heated up in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Gulf Stream pushes it up north. So very, very warm ocean water ends up around England, allowing it to be about as warm and temperate as here, despite being like many latitude degrees higher than we are. And it should be much, much colder.
And when I say warm, I mean warm relative to freezing cold air that's coming, from the continent that would create like snow drifts and ice and stuff like that. So
yeah, like what pummels the Midwest.
Right. So, but we get what is essentially, even if it's, 5 degrees above freezing, it's still relatively warm because it's above the freezing temperature of water.
Yeah.
Because the ocean's always going to be above the freezing temperature of water.
Yeah. And there's a question in chat, how do we not get chronic depression? And the answer is we do. Get chronic depression. That is why grunge music and coffee are so fucking popular in the Pacific Northwest. This is the thing.
A lot of coffee. Vitamin D helps some people.
There's lights. There's full spectrum lights.
Full spectrum lights help some people.
But yeah, there's a reason why coffee is so fucking popular up here. My mom snowbirds down to Arizona, and she says that there is no coffee culture in Arizona. At all.
Well, who wants to drink a hot freaking beverage in Arizona?
Well, even iced coffee. It's just like the stimulant, need for stimulants isn't the same. Like, it's a whole different vibe. But, it gets pretty dark up here. Seth and I live right on either side, actually, of the 45th parallel.
I drive by it all the time, yeah.
So, we live right there. So it does actually get pretty dark in the winter. We get down to, especially where I live in the Coast Range, with the topography, like it gets down to 4 hours of meaningful light on the house a day in the winter.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 to 6 max.
It's pretty dark, and it gets pretty freaking bright in the summer. I mean, we end up with you have to go to bed when the sun is still kind of glowing in the edge, and you will not get up before the sun. It's just not happening.
There's been times in the summer where I've realized I'm just sheerly exhausted because I've been doing things as long as the sun is up, and the sun is up 17 hours, 18 hours a day.
It's a problem.
And you're like, oh, I actually do need to go to bed because just because the sun's up doesn't mean it's like active daytime for me anymore. And I need to remember to rest my body.
And likewise in the winter, you're like, oh, it's getting dark. It's time to start chilling out. And it's like, it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I actually have to go get groceries, run some errands, hang out with my friends, and then go to bed. And the sun has been down for an hour.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, I just wanted to call out that Altara apparently has a Pacific Northwest climate.
But Altara is pretty south. I mean, Abu Dar is on the southern coast, which is not going to have the same light issues that we have.
No, they have a similar rain profile, but not the same light profile.
The borderlands would probably have a closer light profile.
I mean, I'm thinking even the two rivers, probably, just looking at the map behind you.
Yeah, it's hard to really know where
Well, the equator is a line that you can see. So
the equator is aligned, yeah, but we don't know how far up the poles go.
It's just a map distortion. Like,
I do not know how, does the top of the map end at the pole, or does it end quite a bit further south than that?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Question for another time.
But that is, the map could be displaying not necessarily the entire height of the globe. It could just be displaying but the way that the blight sort of circles the top of the map makes me think that does have the North Pole in it.
Next thing I've got, because I'm just skipping past more Tylin commentary because it's gross. Matt is only getting a faint swirl of colors in his head when he thinks of Rand and Perrin. So he's not getting full pictures and scenes yet. It's still just swirly stuff. So he wouldn't have seen the great fucking telephone game, I don't think. Assuming that we're on the same points of the timeline,
right?
Which is not necessarily knowable.
Yeah, we don't know. This could have gone back a little bit because we could actually be syncing up the timelines, because I thought Rand actually got some images of people's faces already.
I honestly don't know. I'm just trying to look out for it, and yeah,
right.
And then I've got the part where Matt and Luca are the same person and thus hate each other. It's just funny how Matt's like, I don't know where Olver's picking up all these habits, and I don't know why Luca doesn't like me. And it's like, Matt, you are the answer to both these questions.
Yeah, it's whenever Matt describes Luca, and it could be a description of himself.
It's kind of interesting to see him from the outside in this way.
He had a smug, self-satisfied face and a way of smirking at any woman in sight. And he seemed to think every woman in the world enjoyed looking at him. That's why he doesn't like Luca, and it's like, but you do that.
Exactly. And then we get the random line that the man is married, because he got married to Littell since we last visited the circus for some fucking reason that never gets explained. I mean, it's something to do with Littell and Nynaeve having a feud, but it's a dumb reason to get married.
Well, that's why they had the feud. Littell wanted to marry Luca.
Oh, because Luca had never looked at her twice, and now he's looking at Nynaeve, and she always wanted him. And
Exactly.
Oh, okay, fine. All right. So there's a whole soap opera thing going on there. All right.
Right. Yeah. I think we talked about it a little more in the previous circus. I mean, when we talk about this is the beginning of the second circus arc, right? Not really the beginning of it, because we do have a while before he actually leaves with them, but this is sort of the origins of it, where he's thinking about leaving with them. And yeah, the circus has changed quite a bit. It's grown. It's gone from what was legitimately a traveling freak show to what we think of as a modern day Barnum and Bailey circus with a big tent. Or I'm not sure if they've gotten the big tent yet, but hundreds of performers, giant groups of people. This is no longer the small little traveling circus that it was back with Nynaeve.
It was always a talent circus. It wasn't a circus of freaks before, but it's gone full Ringling Brothers at this point.
Right. I feel like there wasn't there a bearded lady and stuff going on? No.
They're just the strong man, but that's a talent. But no, They never had circus freaks, which I'm honestly grateful for. There's so much fucked up stuff going on in circus freak history. I really doubt Jordan would have done a good job with that. It's fascinating history, but I just don't. Knowing him, I'm glad he chose to not open that particular kettle of fish. And then we get a line that supports my longstanding headcanon that Luca is a former Tuatha. A tinker would have blushed at his clothes. His wagon would have made a tinker weep. He was a tinker. He was a Tuatha. I'm sticking by this headcanon.
Sure, why not? Yeah, because all the wagons and the tradition and the colorful clothes, I know it's him being a showman, but I really like the idea of him being a tinker as well.
That's where he gets his love of color.
Right, and he just never could be a performer as a tinker. Right,
the need for security, the need to be able to break up fights, the desire to put yourself out there and invite all this attention. That's all very anti-Tuatha, stay under the radar and keep traveling. He went on Tinker Rumspringa and found the circus, and then just ran away to the circus.
Ran away and joined the circus. Yeah.
I love that that's another split in the IEO, right? First they go off and have this big serious split, and then there's this far more funky festive kind of split later on.
The phases of the moon repeated themselves in silver all the way around the wagon, and golden stars and comets in every size covered the rest of the red and blue surface. I mean, it's just gaudy.
Beautiful. It's so quintessentially the circus.
So he has Beslen and Thom with him, and he's looking around for Olver.
Yes, and then we get a very cringy Olver sequence. It's the weirdest writing. I don't like it. It's so unrealistic sounding.
Just the way the women are reacting, or the way...
The actual words coming out of Olver's mouth. It just feels so clunky and weird.
Because he's badly quoting Matt. He's like taking Matt's quotes out of context and using them in an environment where it's, it's like Elaine cursing. It doesn't quite work in the context that she's using it because she doesn't fully understand why she's using the curses the way she's using them. And the same thing is with Oliver. He's being cute and flirtatious, but he's not very good at it. But because he's young and cute, the women are letting him get away with it. Yeah,
which is also a cringy part of it. Like, that's very cringy.
It is the cringiest part.
My cringe was starting with just the sheer clunkiness of what he's saying, which I think you're right. It's absolutely because he's copy-pasting Matt without really knowing what he's saying. Like, you're super right about that. But the fact that the women are encouraging it, just, that's another level of cringe. Why? Why would you?
That has always been one of those things that, like, why do the women tolerate this ugly boy saying these things to them? Why do they think it's cute?
Why do they tolerate a child saying these things to them?
Right.
Why would you look at a child and flirt back? Like, ew, what are you doing? Like, ugly or no ugly, this is a child. He hasn't even begun puberty. What are you doing? Why is every woman falling for this? This is so bizarre. And no sane person I have talked to has ever had a good explanation for this. It's just weird.
It feels like a boyhood fantasy type situation, right? Like,
I guess
if I grew up in this group of soldiers, I would flirt like they do, and the women would love it, and it would just be like, what, why?
Perplexity continues with this whole arc.
So I get why he's doing it, and I get, the aping of a father figure and the awkwardness of it and taking it out of context. But I never understood why there's a group of women gathered around him, like, ruffling his hair, being like, oh, isn't that cute? Like,
everywhere he goes, like, women just will all collectively respond like this. Yeah, it feels like a very strange wish fulfillment kind of thing. I do love, though, the description about Olver. The lad had a fistful of uncles looking after him, and everyone except Matt himself was a bad influence. Again, very archetypal Matt.
Right. Just absolutely. Matt, you were the bad influence, obviously. They're teaching him, how to fight, but you're teaching him bad manners with the women, how to grin at them. All the bad manners are things you do because he looks up to you above everybody else.
Yeah. It's weird.
And of course, Matt's describes, women want a man to be quiet, well-mannered, and reserved, and a little shy. And Oliver's like, you don't do any of those things.
Yeah, it gives him this incredulous stare, like, not according to the evidence you keep showing me.
Right, yeah. That's, could you try doing that yourself for a little while and seeing how that works out for you? Yeah. That's not Matt. That's not the relationship.
And I do love the idea that Oliver's growing up with a little pinch of every skill of one of Matt's band of the right hand, because they're all talented, right? These are the people that he keeps close to him, so they've all got useful skills to impart to him. This kid is going to be a Swiss Army knife of skills when he grows up, as he grows up.
I'd love, again, a second series of novels, the adventures of Oliver Farstrider, right? I'd love to see him go out and have all these great adventures with all the skills he's learned while he seeks revenge for his parents' death and tries to track down the killer, only to realize that it was kind of pointless in the first place because he'll never be satisfied with killing his parents' killers, and he has to go through that journey, and he's going to go through the Twisted Stone Terrangrial because he's heard his Matt stories to get answers, and it's just there's so many things he's going to do. He's going to visit Shara, and I think that would be a great way to have a next generation of novels about the Wheel of Time, is make Oliver the main character in this story, And of course, who is he going to meet up with? Birgitta and Geidel Kane, who have just both recently been reborn and are now like 1 and 0 years old.
Yep.
You know, as he grows up, they'll also grow up, encountering all of our current Aes Sedai who have not aged more than, you know, a few years in the 20 or 30 years, right? It would be such a good series to explore the new world of post Last Battle.
He would be the perfect set of eyes to see the dawn of the Fourth Age through.
With like a lot of good references to our existing characters thrown in without actually having them involved necessarily.
Because he grew up in their shadow. He has all these skills. He was right there in so many ways. He
knows the truth from the fiction. So when people are telling stories, the rumors have faded to myth, and he's like, that's not what happened. You know, like, oh, or that is what happened. Right?
Yeah, no. And then he can meet up with so many different players and always seem like he's on the edge of maybe being one of the stories, but never quite there. And you're not sure what myth and legend he really is, or is he just a storyteller? Oh my God. We need this. We need this. Somebody figure out how to reanimate RJ so we can have this.
Like, people always talk about the Matt Outrigger novels with the Shan-Chan. I'm actually never been that interested in it, simply because I don't find the Shan-Chan to be interesting main characters. I like them as threats. I like them as side characters. I like them as like a moral quandary, but I don't necessarily want to go over to Shan-Chan and spend a bunch of time dealing with their weird, fucked up slave culture.
It's the only way to redeem Matt from his choice to be okay with slavery at the end of the books. So they're sort of necessary, but yeah.
But again, you can do that with Oliver through secondhand, like,
sure,
you could tell some stories that Oliver's like, oh, and thank goodness Shan-Chan doesn't, you know, enslave people anymore, thanks to, you know, Matt Cawthon and his work with Tuon, right? Like, you can reference it without necessarily going into detail about it.
That'd be cool, yeah. Returning to the story, Luca flounces away and Matt very ostentatiously gathers up his own cloak because he is not a peacock and asks Thom about if his escape plan has been agreed to. And Tom's like, little column A, little column B. We can leave with him, but it won't be until spring, which is like forever from now. And Matt's like, I am going to be changed by Tylin in a way that has not happened yet by the time spring comes around. And that sucks.
But again, another excuse to stay. Oh, that gives me more time for dice. That gives me more time to raise money. That gives me more time to, you know, find excuses to not go. How much of it is an excuse not to go and how much of it is like, okay, I need to get all my ducks in a row before I go?
That's definitely that. He does not want to stay, but he doesn't see how he can get everyone out when he can't even ride. I think that's his real issue, is he needs carts and wagons and he needs to be able to, like, bury himself in a larger crowd for security's sake. He is not looking for reasons to stay, but the pattern is forcing his hand and being like, no, you need to pick up Tuon before you leave. I can't let you leave until Tuon lands.
Right, and that's really what the whole wall falling on him was about, right? It was the pattern being like, stay. And jamming a thumb down on him, basically saying, don't go anywhere. I have more time to dice. Like, that's him putting a good face on it. Like, he is dying inside and does not want to stay. But yeah, the pattern is very determined that him and Tuon are going to get together. And if it has to drop a wall on him and tie him to Tylin for half a year, then that's what it's going to do. And then we get a little update on Beslen, who has really changed. This is Beslen 2.0 at this point. He goes through like 3 versions. There's really 3 different Beslens, and this is the second one. And we don't really see the third one very much. He's sort of the ambassador between the Shan-Chan and the rest of the world. We
get a really good sequence that gives us a view into Fortuona with Beslen. That's when we really see Beslen 3.0 is like, so we can see how Fortuona is going to administer the Empire. And then he fades into the background ambassadorship. He has that one scene where he changes his mind, and it's more about her.
Yeah, I would say that's where he becomes Beslen 3.0. Yes. But we don't really get to live with Beslen 3.0 very much. Yeah,
unfortunately. Yeah. But this is when he wants to like be a terrorist and sabotage their stuff and like get his kingdom back. He's still very much in like freedom fighter mode at this, or he has become a freedom fighter wannabe.
And it's fine. He gets his arc, right? I like his arc, start, middle, and finish, right? Like, I don't really think it needs a lot more time with him. He's one of those characters who I think is a nice tertiary character who really gets a whole character development plot to the point where it doesn't feel incomplete, unlike some of the other characters.
Yeah, he actually has growth and change and an ending. He actually conclusively has an off into the sunset direction to go, which is nice. And it's a fun arc too to see that the Shan-Chan coming in isn't always going to be a like black and white. And now we are at war. Like this is how capitulation works. This is how a treaty might go. This is what a loyal servant, rather than someone who's just waiting for a chance to do sabotage, would operate under that. Like, we mostly see the Shan-Chan in terms of Stark conflict. This is a more complicated arc.
And that's something I try and, especially with the Shan-Chan, I do think Robert Jordan was trying to say, this isn't a black and white situation. These people do bad things, but they also do good things. And make you question, right? Like, is the Rand al'Thor Dragon Reborn way the Andor way? Is that, or the Kyrianan way? Is that the right way? The Borderlanders way? What is the best way to administer these worlds? And is the Shan-Chan way actually, kind of valid in some ways? And should you give it more of a chance than you would? And how does that affect your morals? Because these are slavers.
Right.
Like, how are you justifying that to yourself? Like, is it kind of important that they're there for the last battle? Do they save the world? Kinda, yeah.
Right.
Is it important that there was a treaty with them? Yeah. Is it important that Perrin worked with them and Matt worked with them and Rand worked with them? Yeah. All that made a big difference to saving the world. But are they bad people? Kinda. Yeah,
like, it's so complicated. Yeah. And it's nice that Beslen can help make it more complicated. Mm-hmm. I guess is the conclusion. Yeah.
But I think that's what he's doing. He's giving you these examples of like how sometimes working with these people who aren't the best people can be beneficial for everybody.
Yeah. The fact that you can't have a purity test for who you're going to work with when the world is on the line.
Right. At least that's what I think he's trying to say.
I think that's right. I think he is trying to bring the depth of history that he's familiar with, because he's like not only from the South, he's also a student of history. So he knows that slavery in various forms is a huge part of the human experience. He's not going to want to depict it in really stark binary terms. He's going to want to bring the depth that he's absorbed from his, surveys of history, like, to that, even though he also lives in the heart of like a chattel slavery empire that's only just technically rebranded recently. So like, there's nuance and complexity to even giving him credit for what he's trying to do, I think.
Right. Well, and we talk about it, like, it's very hard to look at cultures and be like, this is a bad country, right? For like Cuba, right? I think Cuba is one of those situations where you've said, this is a bad country. We're not going to interact with them. We're going to cut them off from all services and all trade. And it's really just shot us in the foot, because all it's done is push them towards other countries and kept them, in a 1950s era, and they don't like us. And, I'll be the first to say, I think we need to open up sanctions with Cuba, right? Like, I don't think it's a good idea that we keep sanctioning Cuba. I think it's counterproductive and dumb. And, you have to talk to them. But at the same time, we consider them a quote unquote evil country.
Oh my God.
And so. Yeah. But then North Korea's on the other side of that. Like, same thing, where like we're isolating North Korea. Is that really accomplishing what we want to accomplish, or is it just radicalizing them?
That's above my pay grade to answer.
Right. It's a huge question. And I think he's asking the same sort of question with the Shan-Chan. Yeah. Is isolating them a positive thing, or do you work with them and hope to, convince them that having Suldam is a bad thing.
And do you insist on that happening before you can engage with them on this other issue? Like,
Right.
Where are your ultimatums?
Right. And, very, very smart politicians and economists and armchair, internet people have argued about this all day as to what the best way to engage with rogue states is. And I don't have an answer for you.
No. All I can say is that you should definitely learn a lot of world history so that way you understand there are literally no good guys. In any of these scenarios. There's never a good guy.
And that's what kind of is interesting about fantasy is that there is an obvious good guy in these stories, right? Our Emmonsfield Five are good guys. They are doing the right thing. They're saving the world. That's not really true in the real world.
No, that is one of the top reasons why we love fantasy so much. And speaking of fantasy, I'm wondering if we can finish this chapter, or if that's also a fantasy.
I do like the line, Beslen did believe that Tylin had become a little too possessive. Just a little mind. But that was the only reason he was willing to help, which is his way of basically saying she has crossed some lines in terms of the way she's treated Matt. Like, it's not Beslen who's there involved has realized that, like, this is really beyond the pale, what she's doing to Matt.
Yeah, like, he knows the customs, and even within the context of the customs, she's going too far. Right, like, don't judge people, like, in a different context. It's like, okay, well, Beslen's judging her within context, right?
Right. And I think that's one of the best evidence for this is abusive and not she's not just doing what is normal for her culture, right? Even within that context, it is out of the norm.
Yeah. It's Beslen is not the person who's most likely to leap to Matt's defense over nothing, right? And he's putting himself out there for Matt a little bit at this point. So, yeah, that says a lot. It's quite the indictment. And then we get this whole thing about Roselle, which is more power to Roselle, except for the part where she's including Olver. Oh, it's cute because it's a child. But, like, she clearly is, like, being very sexual with everyone else in the equation. And Roselle, I want you to be, like, a queen that we can salute. Why are you like this with Olver? Stop. But it's been going on ever since the Festival of Birds, because that's when Olver meets Roselle, I think. So that's a whole thing.
I want to defend Roselle here and be like, she's just teaching a kid to read, and he's resting his head on her chest while they read a book together, right? Like,
right. She does ask his age from Matt at one point.
Yeah.
So I'm not putting this on Roselle. It's just like, why does this scene have to? Why, Jordan? Why?
And again, I want to say it's Olver aping Matt in his behavior and being like, oh, touching a bosom is something that's worth being proud. He doesn't understand why it's so nice or why people want to do it. He just knows that Matt has talked about resting his head on a woman's bosom as something that he wants to do. And I'm guessing that Olver is taking that literally to mean like...
He took a euphemism literally? Oh, God.
Yeah, absolutely. He took a euphemism literally.
Oh, no.
That, like, the euphemism of, oh, I went and spent the night resting my head on Roselle's breast. And that was great. And which means having sex with her.
I never even thought of it that far. I just cringed away.
And then it's Olver being like, oh, I did that too. And I just, literally putting his head on her breast while they're reading. And that's his,
that's like even grosser somehow. I do love, though, that she's literally sleeping with, like, everybody in the palace who wants to. Like, Thom, Beslen, this random Captain Yamada guy she's gonna meet in, like, a week at the Wandering Woman. Like,
not
Matt. No. But I do love that, from traveling bard to prince, Roselle gets around. I love that for her.
She has a glorious bosom.
I mean, apparently. And then the dice start.
Yes. So Matt groaned. It was not his leg this time, or the fact that every man in Ebudar seemed to be choosing the bosom they rested their head on, except Matt Coffin. Those bloody dice had just started tumbling in his head again. Something bad was coming his way. Something very bad.
It's Tuon.
It's Tuon. She was just in the last chapter. It's very much this is what I would be guessing is happening at the same time that she's like putting on the veil and stepping off the ship.
That's what I was going to ask, is when exactly do you think the dice trigger for him with respect to what she was doing? Is it when the Damani gives her the foretelling? Is it when she decides to put the veil on? Like, it's got to be a moment in the last chapter, right? Like, that has to be giving us a time sink between
Totally. And the way I think of those is the end of that chapter corresponds with the end of this chapter.
So when she thinks, like, I am Tuon and I'm coming to reclaim stuff, and she's having that, like, moment to herself at the prow of the ship, that's when the dice start.
Right. In her heart, she was Tuon Athem Cor Pendrag, daughter of the Nine Moons, and she had come to reclaim what had been stolen from her ancestor. Dice start rolling.
That feels like the right cinematic beat to me. I want to say it's like, oh, maybe symbolically it's like when she puts the veil on, but I feel like that moment of resolve in her heart is more thematically appropriate. Yeah. So, good times back with Matt.
Yeah. No, and it's nice to be in his actual head when he's planning and scheming Matt is the way I like to, like, going around and coming up with plans, and not the stupid plans that Sanderson writes up for him where he creates like backstories for everybody, but like him actually trying to figure out his way around problems while also being like super hypocritical about his own state of mind. I haven't changed. I'm fine. Nothing's different, and at the same time, like, I'm not trying to take care of people, but I have to be here until I can get them all out. Yeah, no,
I feel like where Sanderson really struggled to get Matt, I feel like this is where RJ like really locked on to Matt. This is when Jordan's like, oh yeah, I know Matt. I know exactly who Matt is, and I am writing him so hard right now. Like, this is very quintessential, and it's nice. It's nice that Matt comes back after a book and a half and just starts right back on that same energy that you left him at, and like doesn't miss a beat.
No, I think it's one of the reasons that Winter's Heart tends to get higher reviews than the book before it or the book after it.
The Return of Matt.
The Return of Matt is like, this is really where Matt shines. And I think that's that plus a good ending are the two things that really make Winter's Heart be a medium level Wheel of Time book rather than a lower level Wheel of Time book. It's the fact that we get to have all this humor and then have all the plot in the cleansing with the Forsaken and all that, and the Forsaken, Forsaken social that we just saw, right? There's like a lot going on in this book that hit the expected beats of a Wheel of Time book. And I think that maybe, Path of Daggers and then Crossroads of Twilight both maybe don't hit all of those high beats.
I would agree with that. This feels like a quintessential Watt book in terms of its architecture in a way that, literally the preceding and following books don't. Because Jordan's spreading everything out. And he's like, you only need one of those books every so often in the series. Right. It's fine.
And then he starts I really do think that Crossroads of Twilight is the setup for the last battle.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what do I have to do before I can start? Knife of Dreams leads into the last battle, but really, what do I need to do before I can start going down the Jordan Lanch, the avalanche of the last battle, And like book 11 very much is sort of that peak and like just the starting little bits of the avalanche. It's just like descending towards the last battle. But that's really as things are starting to come back together again. Whereas I feel like Crossroads of Twilight is still like, okay, I got to move these pieces around. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I want everybody to be before they start falling towards the last battle.
Yeah. But in order to get Matt positioned for the last battle, you have to get him out of Abu Dar, which means bringing him back in where he's stuck in Abu Dar. So we're going to do the long, slow work of digging him out so he can be supreme commander of the Allied forces.
And I think there's other ways he could have done that, right? Like he could have had a Varen be there to gateway him somewhere or something. Like there are faster ways to do it, but he's slowing everything down.
He just had not had enough of the circus. He really wanted a second Circus Arc. He's just like, we left too soon. I got to go back.
I mean, I really do think it's he's trying to get Rand set up for for the last battle. But Rand still has to cleanse the source. He still has to unite the world. He still has to, you know, go insane and then come back from that. And I think he really said, okay, I need Perrin stuck in the snow for a while, and I need Matt stuck in Nebudar for a while. And I need them both to spend some time getting out of that so that I can move Rand al'Thor's plot forward.
Yeah, he had to deny Matt and Perrin fast travel and then give Rand like supercharged fast travel to try to get them to get through their relative to-do lists in an orderly fashion.
Right, yeah. Random note, no, never did my nail in a Halloween little ghosty.
Oh, nice. Little just triangle goes with the eyes and the mouth. Come on, camera, do your thing.
I had a pumpkin on this one too, but I almost immediately peeled it off because I can't not pick at things. And the corner of it started to peel a little bit, so it just went whoop.
Yeah, I did my nails for SpoilerCon, but apparently the way I did it, I didn't put the layers on very good, so some of them peeled up like really, like just all at once. Just like after SpoilerCon, so you know it's fine. I painted them for SpoilerCon, so it's fine. But yeah, there's an art to putting on nail polish in the way that it like sticks, and I have not mastered that art.
No, I have not either. Obviously, my girlfriend only occasionally uses nail polish on me but she loves to do nails. That's a big part of what she likes to, you know. She's got ridiculous amounts of kits sitting actually right next to me over here because we both use this space for our projects. And that's her current project, which is, you know, acrylic nails, and there's lights. And I mean, there's a multi-tiered setup going on here full of chemicals and polishes and paints that I know nothing about. I
put nail polish from Bimart on my nails like a handful of times a year, and I have a top coat that's a clear coat, and I have nail polish remover. That is the extent of my nail polish. I have like 2 colors that I use, and it's like literally 5 times a year. But yeah.
Yeah, she's actually thinking about getting like certified so she can charge people and stuff like that because she's learned enough that I think it wouldn't be that hard for her.
Nail art seems to be exploding from what I can tell from the nosebleeds of looking down at that kind of culture.
Right.
Like, what is happening? It seems like nail art is a thing that's just exploding. So more power to her.
Right. And she's like right on the front of that wave because she's, you know, just involved in that scene.
Wow. And someone in chat saying my friend makes a whole living doing it. That's like, I mean, that's cool, but what a niche art form. Like, it's such a tiny, like, I've gotten manicures before. Like, my grandfather loves getting manicures and has made sure that I know what it's like to get a very, very nice manicure. Like, my whole life, he's taken me to do that. But those are just, like, nice color that's shiny and sturdy and lasts for a long time and is done by, like, very nice ladies. Like, it's not nail art in the same way that I'm seeing now with like the decals and I don't even know what the words are to describe the madness that I'm seeing now.
Patterns and small pictures and gold leaf and little gemstones, and all this is done on top of an acrylic nail, which is attached to your nail. It's all done in a way to like, really, it feels like art.
Yeah, I just like use my hands in the kitchen too much. It just seems like a bad investment.
I'm right there with you.
Like, I'm taking on cooking, and I also like sewing, and it's like those 2 things are really actually quite hard on your nails. Podcasting is not hard on your nails, but everything else that I want to do is.
No, but the work I do is definitely hard on my nails.
Ooh, those are pretty Halloween nails that are pictured in chat. I could definitely see getting event nails done. Like, I wanted to get nails done for my graduation, but it ended up not working out from a scheduling perspective. But I could definitely see getting a set of like acrylic artsy nails for an event. But like, I can't imagine trying to learn it or trying to maintain it as like a thing. I can imagine doing it like once a year or less.
Yeah, she put one acrylic nail on my pinky once, and I lasted about 24 hours before I was like, get this thing off of me. This is absolutely nightmarish for me to feel like I have something glued onto my nail. I just didn't like the experience at all, and I caught it on a bunch of stuff, and it looked fine. I just did not like having something.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine it's kind of like wearing heels or having really heavy earrings. It's just this extra sensory stimulation that's like, the novelty wears off and then it's just extra.
Yeah, and I imagine at some point you get used to it. I mean, let's bring it back to Wheel of Time. We talked about the Sean Chan, how those 2 lacquered nails. That's exactly what this is, right? This is, the lacquering of nails and nail art that's gotten super popular among a certain class of people. And, in a lot of ways, Robert Jordan called it ahead of its time, right?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure long nails have come and gone out of fashion for a long time. They're a pretty obvious body adornment for people who can get slaves to do everything for them to develop, I would think. And we haven't talked about the trailer at all, but I loved the look of the nails in the trailer. It almost looked like they were things they could slip on and off.
Sure,
I'm very curious to know if I saw that correctly, because that would make a lot of sense given how fucking long they are.
They look like a ring to me. Yeah. So do you want to talk about the trailer at all before we jump into the chapter?
I do, actually, because we just should.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, then, context, the first, I wouldn't even call it a trailer. The first teaser for season 2 has come out, and it's shown us a few images, short video clips from season 2.
It's not the first thing that was released. They gave us like a true teaser a while back that was like literally 6 seconds, like a thing. And then this was like an actual teaser trailer, like a true teaser, not some fucking half-assed whatever the first thing was.
Right. The teaser, which is like, I guess the difference between a teaser and a teaser trailer, right? Because a teaser to me is something that says, hey, this thing is coming, but we're not showing you any of it because none of it's ready.
Right. Yeah, this is because New York Comic Con. We got the actual New York Comic Con scale of teaser.
That's the good context. Yep. Whereas a teaser trailer is something that's actually going to show you like a few images from the season, but not give you like a storyline or spoil anything for you. And then a trailer is, what trailers have turned into is basically revealing everything that's going to happen.
Yeah. So we should, I don't even, it's been a while since I've watched it. I don't even know if I can remember the sequence of scenes we get, but it's a sequence of amazing scenes that tell us a lot about the events from book 2 that are coming. Like, I don't know, should we like find the video just so we can like,
if you look in, the season 2 discussion for our Discord, because Discord, once again, Lilligen has posted a bunch of screen grabs from the trailer, which pretty much sum up all of the images.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Lilligen. Okay. I know I've called Lilligen out before for being amazing, but like, seriously, you've been saving me so much time on publishing episodes. Like, I should be paying you the amount of time you're saving me. It's ridiculous. Okay. So we'll just go through these images, I guess, as they were posted.
Sure. They go in generally chronological order for the trailer.
First one is the Sean Chan all standing around. There looks like there's a Daco Vale in the foreground, and Uno is being held down on his knees in like an executioner-ease pose by 2 of the guards.
Or a swear to the Empress type thing.
Yeah, and he's Uno, so he looks like he's winding up to just unleash some curses. And behind him, you can see Perrin and Loyal and someone who I don't recognize. And there's a bunch of other people standing behind. So that's, some kind of Thom on head early encounter with the Sean Chan kind of moment, I'm thinking.
In reaction to that, just really cool costumes, and it's cool. Like, I don't really want to speculate on what's going on in the show. Like,
for sure, yeah.
The plot is almost indecipherable from these short clips, but
the armor's amazing.
The production level, I'm very happy with, like, how the show looks. I've never had a complaint about that. It definitely, like, continues to look pretty epic and pretty iconic. Yeah, the armor is really intricate. Like,
it looks like an insect's like carapace on the back, and then the shoulder pads are a 3-eyed bear cat looking thing. It's like Grom. Like, it looks so cool.
It's really good. Yeah, the detail is amazing. I don't have the biggest screen.
Yeah, it's not in the city. It's somewhere other than in the city setting that we see later.
Looks like there's some homes and maybe a tinker wagon or some sort of wagon behind them.
So why I'm guessing this is an early Sean Chan encounters, because we aren't in the big city. This has got to be like some establishing Sean Chan, oh, they're the bad guys kind of like thing. The next screenshot is Rand looking moody. We don't really know where that's happening. Yeah, his shaved head. He's in some kind of like indoor setting.
Notice there's like a half black, half white motif behind him.
It looks like a bed, but he's clothed. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And then there's this really beautiful landscape shot that is just a gorgeous, like dry landscape, like you might find in Eastern Oregon or something. And there's horse people riding down it, like whatever. But it's just pretty landscapes. Guessing that's the Thom Unhead, like Sean Chan setting, because it's, you know, a new place. Another picture of Rand being broody in the dark with his shirt off. That reminds me of the scene we saw or the little photo we saw of Min in the teaser. Mm. I'm wondering if they're hooking up in this season.
I would hope so.
Same.
Yeah.
See, we've got a shadowy silhouette.
Pretty sure that's a Shamael from the back.
Yeah, that does look like him from the back. I would agree with that. Ooh, and then we get a really interesting shot. The bloody hand.
Yeah, so this is the bloody hand from a woman. The hair is covering her face.
She appears to be naked and 100% covered in blood. And it looks like Rand's hand is reaching for her.
I'm guessing dream sequence, possibly. I saw some speculation that it could be Lanfear, could be a bunch of other people.
My first thought was a dream sequence with Lanfear, and then I saw speculation that it could be Ilyena, and I was like, that also works with the dream sequence. But it has to be dream sequence. Like, there's no way that that's like a real scene. It's too fantastic to be real. Very cool. I'm very excited to see like the horror getting ramped up. Like, a body covered in blood is some horror.
Shot of Perrin, which I don't really have a lot to say.
He looks grim and dressed nicely. I love his vest and love him. And then Donal Finn as Matt. We actually get a picture of him as Matt. It's so cool. He looks concerned.
He does. And there's enough, similarity between the two actors in terms of general face shape. And I think it's not going to be that hard for me to transition from one to the other and be like, oh, Donal Finn is Matt now. Like, I'm not going to have any problem with that. Agreed.
They've got him in the same clothes. They've got him with the same level of concern and grime. I think he's going to transition it just fine. And that shot looks like he's in the city. So that, I think, is farther on in the season. That's getting us towards the...
Well, don't forget, he went back to Tar Valon. So he's somewhere else than all the rest of them.
Looks like Yellow Brick to me. So I'm assuming that he's meeting them up in Falm.
Could be.
It just looks like the same rock to me.
Right.
Suroth, obviously. Not the one with the nails, though. This is just her in her big fancy headdress. I mean, I'm assuming it's Suroth. We're all assuming it's Suroth. There's one with her with nails, though. Another picture of...
These are just selected pictures,
armor.
So that shot with her does go down and show the nails next.
Okay, yeah.
It's just we're not seeing necessarily everything in the shots.
There's a screenshot of Nynaeve with her hair loose, which again, standing in a field, which again feels like it has to be a dream sequence. I'm guessing some testing. I'm really, really hoping we get some testing sequences.
Yes.
Shirtless Daniel Henney.
A lot of shirtless Daniel Henney.
Sword. Definitely doing some workouts for his emotions.
Maureen crying, which, being as she's probably lost her power this season, I get the feeling it's going to be a lot of negative emotions from her.
She looks like she's in a bath and has been crying for days. So yeah, that definitely feels like a stilling sort of sequence. And then we get a shot we've all been waiting for. What the fuck is up with the wheel and the straps? The wheel and the straps are, yes, indeed, to have shirtless Rand tied to. That is what the wheel is for. just like we all
again, I think dream sequence, but it's entirely possible he's been captured by somebody and strapped up there.
It's entirely possible it's a dream sequence that's also real. I mean, that would be in keeping, right? It could be like how we learn that dreams can hurt or something. Yeah, no, I don't know. It'd
be interesting if he had hair like out of the dream and had a shaved head in the dream, or vice versa, right? Because if we could tell a difference when he was, but I think he just has the shaved head all season.
Yeah, and there's an amazing GIF on Twitter of this with like burlesque tassels on the nips. It's a whole thing
They're
on Twitter.
Pasties.
Kevin is a menace. More Perrin.
Same vest.
Yeah.
Looks like a bloody face.
Looks like a similar sequence. He looks just as concerned and grimy as the other one.
This looks like
one. Oh, this seems like a night
Uno
shot
fighting
of,
Sean Chan.
Oh yeah, that's totally Uno kicking a Sean Chan's ass. God, that guy looks like the Sean Chan mask looks very like Mad Max.
It's got the big smile with sharp teeth.
Yeah. They just grill thing. Swan. We've got the Amerlin seat arriving somewhere, coming out of like a carriage with this just absolute plume of feathers coming off of her head, looking absolutely elaborate. So I'm guessing the fall is coming this season because she looks really, really fancy.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's Egwene and Nynaeve on either side of her.
I think you're
Egwene on the right, Nynaeve on the right left.
I don't think that's either of them.
I'll bet you.
Okay. I don't know what we should bet, but I think you're super wrong.
What was live recording to think? Totally not them. Okay. That's enough slices.
Oh, I'm finally looked back at chat, and there's the picture of the nails. Yeah, that totally looks like they've got sheathed ceremonial long nails. And it's the first two fingers of the hand, not the last two fingers of the hand. And they've got rings to match on the base of the finger, in addition to the tips. So that's very interesting. Oh, I cannot wait to see the Sean Chan. I cannot fucking wait.
They're going to be good bad guys, I think, in season 2.
Oh my God. I mean, after what they did with the White Cloaks, who were comical and making them scary, now they're going to take the Sean Chan, who are legitimately scary. I'm concerned. I have concerns. And this shot of Egwene reinforces those concerns. This screenshot of Egwene screaming in agony in what I guess is the Adom. It looks very, very upsetting. I'm upset.
Yeah, it's sort of that collared, yeah. And the Adom is, in this, it looks like it's not just a collar, it looks like it's a whole shoulder piece.
Which we had guessed from seeing that shot at the end of season 1, and this, I feel like, is explaining to us what the true piece of the Adom is. And like, it's not the mouthpiece, it's not whatever else, it's this collar, shoulder piece, brace thing. It's almost like a neck brace, but it doesn't actually support your neck.
Have you seen from the shots, we can tell that's not a mouthpiece, that's actually a nose piercing that hangs down in front of the mouth.
Oh.
Like, if you scroll up to the first picture, and zoom in on that Daco veil, you can see it's actually a nose ring that goes down to the piece that's hanging in front of their face.
Oh. Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting.
The next shot looks like, again, more battle from when Uno was fighting those Sean Chan. Looks like more people around a wagon fighting Sean Chan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say they were tinkers, but they're fighting, so probably not.
Yeah, it's got to be like peddlers or the war refugees. There's not enough color for it to be the Tuatha'an. And then we get a different battle during the daytime of the White Cloaks charging at a city of Yellowstone. So I'm assuming, again, this eastern Tomon Head portion of the continent.
Right, Falma, that area.
Western. I can do directions.
Okay, you who studies and
I have an issue with East and West. I do not know why. Actually, I know why. It's because E comes first in the alphabet, and so I expect it to be on the left-hand side. And no amount of telling myself that it's we will ever help. Someone should work with that.
North doesn't have to be up either.
I know, right? It's so fucking arbitrary.
The next shot, someone with a long knife and a black cloak, that's got to be a sword. That's a two-handed. That's a sword.
I mean, there's two hands like holding that. That's
and based on the cloak and the type of sword it is, I'm going with Myrddraal.
Yeah, it seems like a Myrddraal blade, and it's a hooded figure. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with bad guy one way or another.
Right. Didn't we also get the Dark Friends social? That's one thing I didn't see in these images. Yes, we did get the Dark. It looks like a Shamael with a bunch of random Dark Friends.
Oh my god, we need to talk about that picture. Okay,
yeah, that to me was the most interesting part, because the Dark Friends social absolutely is in books 2 and 3, which is what the season's going to cover.
Yeah. Okay. So Lila Jen posted the picture with the comment that the Dusty Wheel live polls came down pretty firmly on the side of Dark Friends social. So that is definitely like group consensus. As far as who we can see a Shamael. So this is either Forsaken social or the Dark Friends social. Like Ishamael would be present at either. We've got one person in red who's not hooded. Everyone else around the table, aside from Ishi and this red-headed woman or red-dressed woman, are wearing like hood, like draperies over their heads. So I'm guessing. So the woman is either going to be Alviarin or Lanfear, right? Depending on which gathering of bad guys we're talking about.
Or it could be one of the other Forsaken, right? Because the text of it basically said, the text of the voiceover implied that now that they've let out Ishamael, he's going around letting out the Forsaken like one at a time. And so he's actively able to let the other ones out. And so maybe he's brought one of the other Forsaken with him.
Yeah, totally. I mean, maybe they're bringing up, that scene in Path of Daggers where he brings Grandal to, mess with people. Like maybe they're bringing forward like him pairing off with various Forsaken to like do shit. And they're just like, nah, he does that all the time, rather than waiting halfway through the series. But there's black hands, white hands, gloved hands, hands under the table, really weird blue arm wrappings. Like there's so much costume non-clues happening. Like they're around a big table, there's lots of fires. Maybe it's a dream, maybe it's a real dungeon. Like there's just, what do we go on? Bad people. Right. Bad people. I want to think it's the Forsaken all collectively being let out, or it's like a straight adaptation of the Dark Friends social at the beginning of book 2. Like
I think it's more just Dark Friends social again, because if it was the Forsaken, they wouldn't necessarily be uncovered, right? Shamael's going around uncovered. The Forsaken don't feel need to hide their identities in a group like that. They just, piss off everybody else.
Right. So it makes sense for it to be two Forsaken sitting at the head of a table of anonymous Dark Friends. That makes a lot of sense. So who did he bust out to help him with this? Which Forsaken do we get introduced to first? Because I'm assuming that this scene's going to be fairly early on. So that way we're constantly wondering, was one of those people at the table in this scene as we go through the season?
Right.
So
right.
That means that whoever this is going to be probably our second Forsaken. Ooh, which supports the idea that it's Lanfear, because if Lanfear is the woman all covered in blood, and then we see a woman wearing a red dress, maybe they're the same person, and she's trying to, guilt loose Theron into feeling bad because of all the bad things, Well, I don't think she deserves to be covered in blood.
And also, who's the bad guy in books 2 and 3? More than anybody else, it's Lanfear. It's Lanfear and Moradin. Those are the two people who are sort of the pieces moving Rand al'Thor to what they want.
Yep.
Or the players, I should say, moving the piece of Rand al'Thor. Right. So not having her in book 2 and 3, when she's essentially all of book 2, she's the one who's puppeting Rand around, putting him into the mirror world, hanging out with him in Kyrian, right? Showing up, healing him after the battle, because that's when he gets stabbed in the side, and she's the one who saves his life. Like Lanfear is all of that, and then she's around. Rand isn't around for book 3 pretty much, but she's there, after the final battle. She says that stuff to Min when Min's holding him. Like, that's all Lanfear. That's all Lanfear.
Yeah. I agree. I'm nodding.
It would make a lot of sense to have season 2 bad guy, Forsaken, be Lanfear, whereas season 1 was clearly Ishamael in his dreams.
Yeah.
Tricking him into coming to the Eye of the World.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. This trailer made me so excited. Like, from this trailer, I have renewed excitement that season 2 is going to blow season 1 out of the water. Like, I'm really, really excited. I can't help it. I can't help it.
I haven't hit levels of excitement yet. I have hit levels of looking forward to it. Like, I'm looking forward to see what they're going to do, with a hope that it's going to improve on what season 1 did and get a little bit better this year.
Yeah. I'm have renewed confidence in that.
My big issue is, as always with these trailer drops and these season drops, I've never been upset about the actors or the costuming or the sets. They've always looked amazing to me. It's the plot and the writing that has sort of not lived up to what I wanted it to. The pacing and that sort of thing. And that's hard to ever see. You can't really see that in these trailers. You don't know what the pacing is going to be. You don't know what the dialogue is going to be. None of that shows ahead of time. And so that's where I have trouble working up as much enthusiasm as I had for season 1, because nothing I've seen yet proves to me that they've made the improvements that I want them to make. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just have confidence because I have always felt like there was so much pressure riding on season 1. They had to do so much. They had to establish so much. They had to deal with so much expectations and first seasons are often bad, in overall successful shows. So like, I've always had this simmering confidence that season 2 would be better than season 1. And this trailer has made me feel like, or teaser has made me feel like, oh yeah, that confidence is not misplaced. This is, I should hold on to this. This is probably going to be awesome. So we will see.
Yes. Yeah, we will.
I mean, you and I both know editing is magic. The people who make trailers have no obligation to show us what the actual show is going to be like. They're showing us what a really cool teaser is. Like, editing is a special kind of magic. So
no, and I want to love the show, as Abigail's saying. Like, I want to love the show.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's nothing in me that doesn't. It is like hoping it fails. I hope, of course, that it gets amazing and takes off. Especially what we've seen with Rings of Power and the House of the Dragon have both seemed to be. A lot of people are talking about them. Pretty moderate successes. I heard the last episode of House of the Dragon was really, really good.
I don't know. I'm a couple episodes behind. But Rings of Power, which I'm also an episode behind on, is definitely also stoking my hopes for this. As I'm seeing how well Rings of Power is doing, I'm seeing how much money they put into it, and I'm looking at Wheel of Time season 2 being like, come on.
Right.
Come on. I know you can do it.
Right. So, and I have made a decision not to watch either Rings of Power or House of the Dragon until they're all out. I'm just going to binge them when they're done. Yeah.
No, that's fair. I decided I wanted to try to get in on the watching it as everyone else is. But of course, I'm doing a terrible job of actually keeping up. So instead, I'm just existing in that annoying limbo where I keep getting spoiled on shit because I dared to open social media. And it's just like, whatever. I'm just trying to get along for the ride. Like, if I end up having to binge the end, like, oh no, time passed.
Yep. And I'm kind of avoiding the spoilers because even if I see them, I don't know enough about what's going on to understand them.
I'm doing my best to just like not allow it to stick and be like, oh, looks like that face is going to come up. Moving on. Like, I'm trying really hard to let it blast over me. I don't care that much. But like, my mom and I were watching Rings of Power together, and that's been really fun. And now she's gotten one episode ahead of me, so I like need to catch up so we can talk about it. And like the whole thing. She's a bit of a Tolkien nerd, but hasn't read any of the stuff in a really long time and never watched the Peter Jackson movies.
Wow, really?
Yeah, she never watched them. And so she has none of the movie lore that we've all grown up with. So I started watching the extended Lord of the Rings with her, but we only got 2 hours into Fellowship before she's like, okay, I need a break. And we haven't gotten back to it since. But I have been like, well, let me buy the extended editions and we can watch them, because I'm not sure if I've ever seen the extended Lord of the Rings. Like, some of the extended parts I remember and some of them I don't. So I clearly haven't watched the extended ones very often. But yeah, I fucking love them so much. And she's never watched them. I'm just like, please come with me. There's so much lore that you will understand better if you understand the visual language from the original movies.
It's funny. I actually discovered that a friend of a friend had a pottery studio in her basement. And I went over there, and it was one of these things where, like, I was talking to this person, and you ever meet somebody who you're like, we're a little too much alike? Like, we have the same almost exact, like, family history in terms of where our parents are from. We both love pottery and do it on a regular basis. She named her dog Arrow after the Harry Nilsson movie, which I had also done to my previous dog. We actually named our dog after the same song at one point. I went over to her place and she's like, oh yeah, here's my TV. It really doesn't do anything except play the Lord of the Rings DVDs. That's kind of all I've got a DVD player hooked up to it and nothing else. And all I have for the DVD player is Lord of the Rings. And I just played it on repeat while I'm down here working. And I'm just like, would you stop doing the things that I love before I do them? We just had this conversation where it's like, yeah, I do that too. Could you please stop? It was a little disturbing when have you ever met somebody like that where you're just like, you're a little too much like me for like my personal taste?
No.
Yeah.
Only parts of my life. I have too many weird oddball things in my life. I've never had that happen all the way down the ticket. But I have met people with whom a remarkable amount of things align. And it is definitely an eerie thing to be like, do you also do this? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could have guessed. I could tell.
And it's not everything, obviously, but it's just that thing where you're like, oh, that's another thing that really lines up a little too effectively. Yeah. Like, yeah. So that being said, I now have a place where I might actually be able to go and do pottery again, which will be nice to get back into.
Congratulations.
Because she's got a whole basement. She turned her basement into a giant studio. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Margot. I got this shirt at a craft fair on impulse. The artist painted this art and had it on all kinds of different merch. And I was like, oh, I really like salmon, so give me a shirt. And I've had it for several years, and it's still, the decal's still basically fine, because as I will preach from the rooftops forever, turn it inside out, wash it on cold, wash it on delicate, and line dry it. And then your decals will not die.
Those of us with no yard and no outside space would love to know how you line dry something.
I hang it in a sunny window.
Yeah, I don't really have those either.
Yeah, I have this really dumb chandelier in the so-called dining room that is not where we eat. So there's space, and so I just hang like the things from it. That's how I do it when it's not summer and I can't hang things outside on my beautiful porch.
Yeah, the 700 square foot apartment is not conducive to that.
Yeah, I also have a folding rack, like what's depicted in chat. I use that as well.
I also don't have a washing machine in my apartment, so I would have to go wash the clothes and then haul the wet clothes back to my apartment to hang dry.
Well, if you do it for the shirts with decals, you can save the decals. You don't have to do it for all your laundry, but the decal shirts, it makes a big difference.
Shirts with decals are like 90% of my laundry.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. Well, the ones that you're really worried about preserving that haven't started to decay, it's worth considering.
Right.
Or just keep buying shirts and throwing plastic into the world. It's fine.
No, it's just always funny when I have noticed the difference between people who own a house and people who live in an apartment sometimes on what's feasible. Because a lot of times people who own a house are like, well, just put up a line in your spare room. And it's like, no, that's not. Every square inch of my apartment is covered with something already. And adding square footage to something means losing it on something else.
Brandon has always insisted on drying his decal shirts, even in the small apartments. It's actually possible. It's just a matter of priorities. Like, don't give me that. There's no space. like their space. It's a matter of priorities. And also you can only do so much. So you have to like be very selective. But like if you have one spoiler construct and you don't want it to die, it does not matter how small of an apartment you live in. You can save it.
The not having a washing machine makes it really difficult.
Man. Yeah. Do you have to go up and down stairs, or is it at least on the same level?
What, my washing machine?
And your apartment. Yeah.
I have to drive. I have to go to a laundromat.
Oh, you're just not even in the building. God,
Yeah, no.
Yeah. The worst we had was like where it was down in this bullshit basement, like of the building we were in. That was the worst we've had. All the way to a fucking laundromat is oof.
So then you have those industrial dryers, which are even harder on everything than...
Oh my God. Yeah. You can't control those nearly as well as you can control a home one. A home one, at least you can do like air dry as a setting. Like that's an option. But do you want to go to a world where there's neither washing machines nor drying machines and line drying is the only option?
Yeah, sure. And it's just people doing the washing.
Yeah. Laundry is so much. I have done laundry by hand a few times. Holy fuck. That is so much work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we thought we had it rough with our laundry. I think there's a reason people used to wear like underneath, like just a what do they call it? Like a light white linen suit underneath everything and just not like wash that once a week and then have your clothes on top of that.
Yeah, totally. Like a shift, your undergarments. Yeah, absolutely. Because yeah, it's too much work to wash all that big heavy stuff. And it's too expensive. Like it's really hard on fabric to be washed. Mm-hmm. And fabric is very labor intensive to make in the pre-industrial era. So again, you want to wash that as rarely as you can get away with.
And the old butt flaps in the underwear that I've seen, so you could like actually like poop in it without taking it off.
So that you don't have to take your onesie completely off in the dead of winter just to fucking take a dookie.
Especially because the bathroom is outside and it's cold out there.
And yeah, dying of hypothermia trying to take a shit is like really inglorious.
I really do think like back in the day, using the bathroom was one of the more dangerous things you could do, right? Like I was listening to an NPR story where they're talking about like how black widow spiders really have a bad reputation because they haven't killed anyone in decades, and they only really used to kill men when they bit them on the dick, because they would basically make their web in the bowl of the outhouse. And so when men sat and their little dangly bits would dangle, the spider would run up and bite it. And because it's a neurotoxin and there's a lot of nerves there, it's like hyper effective. And so, yeah, apparently that's where black widows really could have got their reputation. But because no one uses outhouses anymore, like no one's really died from a black widow bite in many, many decades.
The more you know. Like, the visceral, like, full body cringe pain of thinking about that is just... Yeah, the more you know, the more you wish you didn't. That is what is happening for me and everyone else. But no, the bright side here is
don't be scared of black widow bites. Like, they're not really that much worse than other mildly venomous spider bites.
Sure. It's just don't get bit where there's a lot of blood flow that goes right into the main, like, back to the brain parts of your circulation. Get it on like a finger where it's like out there and...
Right. And if you do go to the hospital, right, that's the other thing, right? They didn't have modern medication back then. They didn't have antivenoms. They didn't have blood transfusions. They didn't have treatments. They didn't have antibiotics. Like...
Yeah. We're just going to all do a nice mental cleanse by just imagining the most ridiculous skimpy underwear on all of the super girls underneath all their practical clothes. Just mental bleach. Just think about ridiculous underwear and what would actually be practical and like, okay.
And just a little bit of lace.
Just a little bit of lace.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?